I'm so stoked to be talking with you today, Jess.
Thank you.
For a couple, well, for many reasons. You're honestly one of my I think of all the people I'm working with now, actually, I've been working with you the longest. We started working together when I was just like not even halfway through my training. Um, and it's been such a solid like stretch of really amazing witnessing you transform. And the other another reason is that I know we're starting the sanctuary group and we had a little pause where we weren't working together and it's just like so wonderful to be entering. I feel like when that happens sometimes like where there's like a pause and then like a restart, there's like a whole nother chapter or a whole nother like level or layer of transformation that is just peeking its head through that's like ready.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that too. But before we get too deep, because I know you and I can go deep quick. um, I wonder if you'd be open to sharing with people, yeah, a little bit about where you were at in life when you found me and what drew you to come work with me.
Yeah, I would love to share that. So, I am a child of traditional therapy and have been for a long time. Um, and I feel like I had done traditional therapy because really that's all that was afforded to me at the time, and I think that societally that's what our go-to is. And I was in a huge transitional period in my life. It was during the pandemic. We were on an RV. We had left our home in Los Angeles and decided to travel around the country with three kids and a dog, and my husband working full time. And we were traveling with a family, and then we ended up going separate ways, and there was so much growth in that. And then I found myself in such a state of panic that I was shutting down, like I was being unable to function. And it was for multiple reasons that I was shutting down. In that, like I didn't have any space, I didn't have any time, I didn't have any direction, and I was in this state of limbo with all of the anxiety of the pandemic going around and not knowing how to feel safe. And then also trying to be a mom and a wife and a person and a human at the same time. Um, and so I reached out to a really good friend of mine and mentor, and she suggested, hey, I'm doing this training, but I think you should reach out to this woman, Elizabeth, see if she's available. And, like, I think this type of work would be really, really good for you. And so I did. And I it was one of the most profound experiences of my life. I can still imagine myself sitting in the truck because I didn't have a space to go. I had to like drive somewhere and like sit in the truck and do my therapy on my phone. And I can see the day. It was like gray out. And I was just like sitting in this parking lot, hoping and praying like people weren't going to think that I was just weird talking on my phone and having like a profound moment. And um, at the end of the session, I was like, this is how you can tell this is working because my butthole feels relaxed. And
Yeah, we joked about that for a while. Like that should be a testimonial.
yeah, that's the testimonial is your butthole relaxes completely for the first time ever. Um, but I think what that was ultimately really speaking to is I had not even been inside my body enough to know what my own body was doing and how much tension I had been holding. And women hold a lot of tension in that space, especially if they're not feeling safe.
Yeah.
Um, so
Mm.
yeah, so that's how I found you. And then from that point on, I was just like, this is the way to go. This is the path forward for me because I know that being in my body and that if I can feel safe in a hour session, this is what is calling to me right now.
I love that. And it makes me think of other comments I've heard too of people who like have had like a lifelong habit or tension or something like biting nails, for example, and like, huh, I just stopped doing that. And I didn't realize I've been doing that for years, that kind of a thing. But what you're speaking to is so profound because it might just seem like a simple thing on the surface, but you're speaking to this deep state that we shift into when the nervous system is in that state of safety, and that ability to sense itself and know itself in a way that is safe, in a way that allows whatever holding patterns have been there for however long to reveal themselves. And what I want to ask, because there's so much out there, of course, of people doing this, working with the nervous system, working with trauma, working with the body and somatics. Um, but I find that many of them don't actually necessarily do it in a way that is mm, held and titrated and attuned in at the pace and timing and circumstance for the client in a way that it actually um, has those like releases that happen kind of surprisingly, as surprisingly for the practitioner as the client, and in a way that is not just like a big cathartic thing that then goes back, but that actually sticks and holds. Which obviously, like, since we've worked so long together, you've gotten to witness like the difference between like maybe going to like a big cathartic session with somebody and then like not, like piecing out and being like, I'm good, versus like working consistently every week or every other week for like months at a time. And I'm wondering if you could speak to the way that the work that we've done has, in that steady kind of way, has really made a difference in a how it's really changed your life in a way that would be maybe different than if it was just like a one-off, like really cathartic experience, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I am. What's coming to mind immediately is like my body started to just like crave the time that we had together. So it wasn't even just like wow, I could really use an opportunity to talk about these things because I do have other outlets to talk about things, but having an outlet or having a modality that allows you to like really get in your body and then feel what it wants and feel what it needs and allow it to just go there in a gentle and not traumatic way really felt so good. Like it feels like a massage from the inside out.
Oh,
Um
yeah. Oh,
and like the big cathartic things like those are for people, different people at different times and different periods in your life when those do work. And I will say, like I have had several large cathartic releases in our sessions. Um, However, the cool part about it is that I was able to like come back to a safe place and then reap the benefits of what that experience was and then integrate it into my body instead of being like, wow, that thing was so crazy. I wonder what happened. But instead, I was able to take what happened and then allow it to like seep into the rest of my life and the rest of my body and then allow it to unfold in all of these interesting, cool ways. And of course, the universe works in such miraculous ways. One really important thing was, of course, I forget things sometimes, and I had gone on retreat and had the like one of the best weekends of my life, and I forgot that we had a session. And so on my drive home, we had this session, and it has been one of the most profound experiences to be able to integrate what I learned that weekend. It has changed so much about who I am, and it was about power and understanding power in a completely different way. And I was able to integrate power for myself. And I can honestly say that I feel like a powerful person, but not a person who is taking power away from somebody or lording it over somebody, but someone who feels empowered to be who I am and unmask and truly live a life of authenticity.
I love that. And I remember that session. That was a special session. You were driving home from like a big conference in California, I think. Um,
Mhm.
for folks who weren't there and didn't get to witness this epic session, um, what would you say it was about doing a session right after having, been pursued this other conference that was like opening up a bunch of new experiences for you? What was it
Yeah.
about having this integration session afterwards that gave it that possibility that you just described of like that
Yeah.
power regulation experience. Yeah.
Well, I feel like it's a normal phenomena. Like people go on retreat or they go on these places and they have these profound experiences, and then they start to fall off and you don't get an opportunity. You're like you start to feel shame or bad that you're not doing the things that you felt or knew or learned in the thing. And I think for me in particular, in the group of women that I was with, I ended up having that session right after, and it was so that I could digest what I experienced and then see how it applied to my life in my specific way rather than an overarching, like, well, this is how this should apply, or this is
Mm,
what this can look like. It was my own way of being able to truly, like, I feel like the image that's coming up is like I'm like was eating the marrow of the bones of that experience and truly allowing it to nourish my body
yeah.
and take it and then use that as a way to like rebuild from the inside out.
Yeah.
And like absorb and just truly cellularly integrate what I experienced so that I could use it in being a mom and a friend and a practitioner and a student and all of these different things. And um, I think it really helped me get to the place of something I've wanted my whole life, which is to truly feel empowered and have power and autonomy. And
Yeah.
I've been, like it's one thing to say it, and
Yes.
I believe in like fake it till you make it too. And then to actually feel it is
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
like no I'm saying words to describe it, but there's actually not.
No, and you're doing such a beautiful job because it is such an experiential thing. But yeah, the practice of actually making resources out of our lived experience to literally nourish ourselves, which is, I'm listening to this quantum conference right now, and there's so much about that is like, yes, that's how reality works. And it's not just slowing down and appreciating, although that's part of it. There's so much that is physiologically changing inside of ourselves and our bodies by training our attention in these powerful ways and doing it mm, attuned to each of our unique blueprints, like pacing, dosage, timing, particularities, all of that. So that was really beautiful to hear you describe it. And I wonder if you could also talk about, speaking of integrating back into your life as a mom. And I know you've had a lot going on, like your family has had a lot. You've walked your children through some difficult and maybe even labeled as traumatizing experiences.
Yeah.
You yourself have been through some really intense medical challenges and health
Yes.
challenges. Anything you want to say about how the work has also helped in very tangible ways your everyday life as a
Oh
mom,
yeah.
as a woman who's, a professional as well, and all the things. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, also thanks to you so much, and the universe is so special in that like we just so happen to have the same chronic illness pop up and then be able to like I think one of the things that illness does is it isolates and it makes you feel alone and it makes you feel like there's no way out. And so, there's something so special about being able to get to a place where I'm like, and I have this thing, and then you're like, oh yeah, cool. I also have this thing, and I want to provide some resources for you. And that was really another turning point in my life to be able to be like, oh, so this thing that I have going on. Um, it has so many components to me, and it actually was another big piece that really affected the way that I could be a mom, a partner, like all of these things, because I was constantly drained. I was constantly just wiped out. And in turn, it also was showing up that like I'm wiped out in my own life. Like I couldn't resource myself because I was constantly doing things that were against my own body's desires or even against my own intuition, which I'm not going to go on a tangent, but also playing into like somatics really helps you learn about systemic oppression.
That's
And
not a tangent. That's a great insert.
and it was a way that I began to understand how my body and my being had been trained essentially to ignore my own signals of exhaustion
Hmm.
and to play into the capitalist ideology of production and doing is the most important part of who I am. And it decimated my body.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and then somatics is like, cool, cool, cool. I just want to remind you that also you don't have to do that. And it is
There's actually a blueprint that's so much older than that. If you just tap in, just check it out.
it was like, oh, I can just like this whole idea of like just being is a foreign concept to me, and learning that like me doing things does not equal my value. And that's a really tricky one to get around, especially with my kids, with being a person in society. And so circling back to like how it plays out in my everyday life is that it has allowed me to break down these things that I thought were truths,
Yeah.
but they were actually lies that I have been buying into my whole life. And I mean,
Yeah.
maybe lies isn't the word. I want to use a different word, but I don't have another word right now.
Hmm.
But those things that I've been buying into. And so at this point, I think too, because we've worked so long together too, it's like there is nothing other than the soma. Ultimately, in this
Hmm.
experience is like
Hmm.
as a somebody who's on the earth
Hmm.
experiencing this, like I have my other self that is also experiencing other things, but ultimately I have to take care of this body. And
Hmm.
to do so, I have to be healthy in listening to it and allowing it to process. That's another huge piece is processing feelings. I'm
Hmm.
a neurodivergent person. It's very difficult for me to process feelings in the way that I have big feelings, but then I don't know what to do with them. And so normally I just shove them down or find some unhealthy coping strategy to try to manage them. And I think working together, that is really, there are things that I have done my whole life to try to cope that I don't even want to do anymore. That
Yay.
includes like overeating or drinking or I don't know, other impulse buying. Those
Yep.
things in my life were solid coping strategies that I have. I mean, I think I even in one session I'm like, I don't even want to do any of that stuff anymore. So what do I do?
It wasn't even like get me out of this. It was like I'm confused because I'm not feeling compelled to do this anymore.
Like
There's this
what
weird
coping
empty
strategy do I
space.
get?
Oh no. That's
Oh,
so
I guess
good.
I'll draw and write and journal and like make cool stuff. Fine.
Yeah, I'll let my creative channel flow. Yeah, speaking of
Yeah.
like, well, first of all, is there anything you want to finish on that thought? But I want to hear too about your creative channel that's flowed from freeing up that space.
No, I mean, I I'm your biggest fan.
Oh,
And I always like my whole I hope that people get an opportunity to just experience it. I'm always like, hey, 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 I got a gal. I got a gal. You want to give it a try? Um, because even, the long-term work obviously is very beneficial, but even just trying it, even experiencing it one or two times or just like these short experiences, they hold so much value as well because I think ultimately it's about like really getting into your body, listening, and then allowing yourself to just take the time to process and listen to yourself.
yeah. Wow. And what would you say is the biggest difference between who you are now and who you were at the beginning, thanks to having listened to your body and done the work?
Um, there's so many differences.
You don't have to
Um,
choose one, but
yeah. Well, I think knowing myself in a way, like I really actually didn't know myself. And I didn't actually know what I liked as a
mm,
result of masking my whole life.
mm,
And
mm,
so it was like I finally had permission to be like, honestly, I love looking at the ocean, but I would much rather be in a pool. Like, and saying that and like not having to feel bad because that's not what the majority of people might say, or being like, like knowing things about myself and knowing them that they're the things about me instead of having to also try to attune to other people to feel safe.
yeah, yeah,
Instead, I can feel safe
so huge.
being
Yeah.
myself.
You're speaking to the piece around authenticity, and it's such a word, it's such a concept, but working through the somatics, working through the innate intelligence, um, it's like it reveals itself instead of you having to go find it. It just kind of like unpeels so much that's on top of it, and then you're like, oh wow, like peeling the layers of an onion and finding more and more you in the center.
Yes.
It gets easier and easier.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, and what would you say that you're looking forward to that you feel like is on the horizon for you that wouldn't have been, that now that you're in this process of the deep unpeeling and the trusting and the becoming more yourself and the true
Yeah.
empowerment, like that you feel like, oh, there's like a light on the horizon that wasn't there before. But what is that for you? Whatever you want to share of it that
Yeah.
feels worth sharing publicly. Yeah.
I mean, there is, I've had a tendency to go very dark in my life, as like a way out. And I think that that is not even a thought in
Mm,
my life, like the hopelessness or not wanting to figure things out or having the opportunity to know that the light that I have inside of me is so profound and that it's here for a reason and that it is to shine so brightly in this world and that I don't have to feel ashamed about it or that I don't have to make an excuse for it
yeah.
or dull myself for others.
Mm,
And that, ugh, I don't even know all of the things because there were some real hard things. And um, I do want to say if there's one of the biggest things too that I've learned through this process is that the universe truly always has my back. And time again, I mean, we were on the brink of literally having to sell all of our things. And the next minute, she shows up and my husband got a job. And we're like, oh, oh yeah, okay, yeah. Like all of these different ways. To have the body also connected to the bigger picture and the connection and whatever you want to call it, the universe, the greater power, the goddess, all of the above, that these two things are intrinsically tied together. And that the more that I get into my body, the more I have access to that.
wow, it's so beautiful hearing you speak this out loud. And I mean, honestly, I'm getting that feeling that I get, like that deep, settled, spacious feeling that pretty much is like it's always just a matter of when is it going to pop up in our sessions. It just like there's this field that we enter, and it's this field that's like, yes, you can train in it and train in how to make it more accessible because it's available for everyone. But that's what's so, I think, to bring back what you said about being free from systems of oppression or any patterning or any traumatic conditioning. It's like, oh, yeah, what you're speaking to is this field that is, it's not even like an alternative. It's like so much greater than whatever those contortions are. whatever
Yeah.
those suppressions, those whatever those are, they just like eventually melt in the space of that greater possibility. And so I want to thank you also, like, like it's such a pleasure to do this work, and it's such a pleasure to bask in that field with you when we work together. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, and I'm so grateful for everything you've shared today. Is there any last nugget of wisdom or sharing that you'd like to offer to people?
While you were talking, like the word radical came into my mind,
Mm,
and that like allowing this work to radicalize you into like self-love and self-knowing like you've never experienced before.
yeah. Radical self-love and self-knowing, right? Like these aren't just flat, cute terms. They're like these power terms that just keep evolving and blasting open new levels of experience and bliss and possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels almost silly to try to be talking about it in words, but
Right. At this point, we're just like, okay, let's just drop into the somatic field. But it's nice to do for people who haven't
yeah.
experienced it to have a taste.
Yeah.
And there's also a way that speaking about something brings it. And I know that we'll get a chance to hopefully work on this in these coming months in the sanctuary,
Yeah.
but like to become then a teacher or a speaker about something that you have been deeply impacted by. It's like the
Yeah.
full circle lesson and the full circle, like next level of bringing your gift into the world.
Yeah.
So I'm also really
I'm
excited
excited for that.
to do that.
And lastly, I will say that as a person, I'm in school right now to become a therapist, and I see the disconnect in the theories and methods that I'm training in. And ultimately, like to become a therapist because I want to help people in some way understand themselves, it's very clear that the path forward truly is somatics. And I think that the research is showing that there's so much that is showing that this is really how we heal ourselves and in turn also heal the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.